Just ahead on American Black Journal, best-selling author Wes Moore talks about the plight of African Americans and the poor in this country, plus details on a workshop to help small business owners build their customer base. Don't go away. American Black Journal starts now.
American Black Journal is funded by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, a partner with communities where children come first.
How does diversity bring energy to us all? At DTE Energy, we believe that it's the contributions of all that build great communities. As a company, we grow stronger by welcoming the unique perspectives of everyone. As community members, we support our state's broad culture and heritage. From working closely with women and minority-owned suppliers to embracing our local cultures, DTE Energy is powering diversity. The DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public Television. Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
As a leader in innovation, Ford is committed to making people's lives better through social mobility. Through our community programs, Ford is providing opportunities and access that help people succeed and realize their dreams. Sometimes it's as basic as providing a warm meal to a child so they won't be hungry at school and can learn. Sometimes it's about job training for adults to gain economic independence. Whatever your dreams, Ford is committed to helping you achieve them. Ford, driving a brighter future in our community.
Welcome to American Black Journal. I'm Stephen Henderson. Wes Moore is an author, an outspoken social activist, a television producer, and a decorated Army veteran. A year ago, he was named CEO of the Robin Hood Foundation in New York, which fights poverty by funding schools, food pantries, job training centers, and other programs. Moore was in town recently to deliver a keynote address at the Detroit Policy Conference. I had a chance to sit down with him to talk about his new position and his best-selling book that captured the nation's attention. Wes Moore, welcome to Detroit and welcome to American Black Journal.
It is great to be back in Detroit and great to be with you on ABJ.
I was going to say, you come here pretty frequently now, right?
There's a lot of best practice to understand, you know, and I think that as we're thinking about our work collectively on poverty alleviation, economic mobility, educational access, you know, I'm very deliberate about the fact that I go where good things are happening because I want to learn. And so it's that ethos has forced me to come to Detroit quite a bit, so I'm excited.
I want to talk about that work in a second, but I want to start with the book, The Other Wes Moore, which I think is this wonderful combination of a look at sort of serendipity, intentionality, luck, all of these things that make us who we are, and it really shows just how narrow the margin sometimes is between success and failure. For viewers who don't know about the book, tell us about The Other Wes Moore.
Yeah, so The Other Wes Moore really began where the day after I received the Rhodes Scholarship, the Baltimore Sun, which is my hometown paper, wrote this article.
Worked there for a long time.
Yes. Wrote this article about, you know, this local kid who had, you know, some real challenges coming up, but I was now just received this scholarship and I was going to get ready to head off to England. At the same time, they were writing a whole series of articles about 4 guys who robbed a jewelry store, and in the process of robbing the jewelry store, an off-duty police officer was murdered. There was a 13-day national manhunt for those guys, and finally on the 13th day, all 4 guys were caught. And one of the people that the police were looking for that's eventually captured and tried and convicted and sentenced for the crime was a guy whose name was also Wes Moore. And so what I did with this book was just tell the story of the journey of these 2 boys and what ended up happening that causes this split. And so you're absolutely right. I mean, where it's luck, it's opportunity, it's structure. You know, and I remember someone said, you know, is it nature or is it nurture? Is it, you know, what is it? And the answer is it's both, right? We cannot talk about societal responsibility without understanding that at the end of the day, these are individual decisions that people are making that have to be held to account for.
Right.
However, we cannot talk about individual responsibility without understanding that those decisions are being made in a societal context. And the societal context that we've created, that we've intentionally created in many cases, are now breeding the type of decisions that people turn around and make.
It chooses winners and losers well before individual decision enters the picture.
That it's so true, and our ability in our society where we have become so miserly with the way that we apportion opportunity inside of our society. I mean, I think about if you tell me that a child is born today, it breaks my heart and should keep all of us awake. The fact that if you allow me to ask 7 questions.
I can tell you what's going to happen.
I can tell you what's going to happen to that child, to the child that's born today. So we're talking about things that that child is not at all responsible for.
Right.
But basic questions of, tell me the zip code they're born into.
Right.
Tell me about their family situation. Tell me what school they're going to go to. Basic questions. That should not be the case.
Yeah. And for you, obviously, things went in a different direction because of structure, because of intentionality. Talk about how that sits with you. I've always been curious, the personal connection between the two of you. To think that if not for the people who were around you, if not for the choices that got made on your behalf, you might be him. That's gotta sit with you really heavily.
I believe deeply the chilling truth is that his story could have been mine. The tragedy is that my story could have been his. And so it was the people that both of us had in our lives that helped to either make sense or make nonsense of what was going on in our own individual lives. And you know, I'm thankful for the fact that you know, between my mom, we were both raised by single moms.
By single mothers, right?
You know, but my mom, that my grandparents were helpful. I had aunties and uncles, you know, who were always, you know, who were there to be helpful and supportive. And it wasn't like our family was perfect. And I think I lay that in even the book and in the story, that it wasn't like we were all perfect. But what happened was it allowed space for decisions to be made and second chances to be able to be embraced. And with Wes, you know, I think about the fact that even as he was coming up, there was a point when second chances become last chances. And the structural impediments and the individual decisions that were then being made and the people who were surrounding had significant impacts on where he ended up to this day.
We're talking a lot this year about the 50th anniversary of the Kerner Commission being released a year after the rebellion here and several other cities exploding in tumult. And your book has come to mind a couple of times for me as, gosh, I don't know, a warning or a sign of how far we've come and how far we haven't, right? In that one book, the two of you really show what's changed in that 50 years and what hasn't.
So, literally 5 years to the day that The Other Wes Moore was published, Baltimore had its uprising
over Freddie Gray, right?
5 years to the day that The Other Wes Moore was published, Baltimore was on fire. And so we think about this idea that history has an uncanny way of repeating itself and getting worse if we're not actually learning from it.
We're not doing it differently to avoid repeating it.
If you want different, do different. And so we now as a large society have to ask a question. Are we willing to do what it takes to do different? You know, we all say we want different. But if you want different,
what does that look like?
What does that look like? Doing a better job of apportioning opportunity fairly within our society. Doing a better job of making sure that we are thinking critically about economic mobility in all communities and not just certain communities or certain subsections. Thinking about educational assets and educational priorities, about how we think about education from a long-term and a full life cycle for our individuals and for our families and for our kids. These are things that we have to be deliberate about. And if not, then a lot of history's worst moments will simply
come back and visit us again,
show themselves again.
I want you to talk about the Robin Hood Foundation and your work there, because I think that, of course, dovetails very nicely with what you're talking about, this idea of structural opportunity, changing the way we think about those things.
Yes. And you know, and so the Robin Hood Foundation is a foundation that's been around for 30 years. It's one of the largest poverty-fighting organizations in the country, with a sole focus on poverty alleviation and economic mobility. Right. So whether it is education, housing, immigration, criminal justice reform, health, wherever poverty shows itself either as a causal relationship or a correlation, Robin Hood will be there to fight it. But I think one of the most fascinating things that I've really had a chance to fully embrace in this work is Robin Hood, again, is one of the largest in the country. It's still a fraction of our ability to be able to impact the change that we all want to see. There is not enough philanthropic dollars in the country to be able to combat against bad policies and to be able to combat against structural challenges. And so one of the things I've really loved and embraced about the work of Robin Hood is the ability to go and identify where best practices are, the ability to be able to go fund innovative social entrepreneurs, innovative concepts and ideas that actually can measurably and permanently move families out of poverty. But it's also being able to understand that the power of Robin Hood and all foundations is not necessarily its purse. The power of foundations is its voice. It's the fact that it can and should have an opinion when these issues are being debated and discussed, because the type of dollars and the type of structure we're talking about on the government front are completely dwarf anything else that from the foundation community that we can do, regardless of the millions or the hundreds of millions that organizations and foundations can give away.
You know, I had a conversation with someone recently who said, this was someone who is spending a lot of those dollars right now, trying to push back, trying to send things in a different direction. He said, you know, if we had spent this money 50 years ago on structural change, it would have been less. And it certainly would have had better outcomes. We sort of blew it by not taking advantage of that opportunity, and now we're in a mop-up phase in some ways.
Remediation is terribly expensive. And whether you're talking about on the educational front, whether you're talking about on the social services front, whether you're talking about the criminal justice front, remediation is terribly expensive. And so how we then think about putting money on the front end, how we truly think differently about the type of measurements that we're actually aiming for, how we can think about preventative, preventative forms of intervention. That is going to matter deeply on our ability to have any form of resource or just mind space.
You can see my entire interview with Wes Moore at AmericanBlackJournal.org. Coming up next, a workshop for small business owners. But first, we're taking a look back at some of the guests on this program over the last 50 years. Here's a 1986 Detroit Black Journal interview with business owner Dave Bing.
You as an individual, as a black man in business, how did you see your clout grow specifically, and what could be done for the black community as relates to gaining that kind of power?
I would say I'm very fortunate in location, more than anything else, to be very honest with you, to live in a city like Detroit that has a mayor like Coleman Young, that has the whole political team that's very, very supportive of black entrepreneurs. To be in a city where you're in manufacturing, such as my business, and have all three major car companies located here that are very, very supportive of the program has helped also. So I think location and support from major corporations and the whole political process has helped me to grow from a very, very small company in a short period of time to expand my growth, not where I'd like to be, but has helped tremendously.
You mentioned that, though. It is important to find, and especially I think for blacks, to find a niche. Now, you found a corporation that needed to supply for others. Now, many blacks do not necessarily do that, or for some time they did not. They had traditional black businesses. Is it important that we move past that and start to grow into other areas? Is that why you picked steel, perhaps?
I think so, without a doubt, because in steel it was something that obviously is non-traditional vis-a-vis what most blacks may venture into in terms of business. And I saw an opportunity here in this city where it was a major, major business. It's a support system to the big automotive industry, and I saw an opportunity to get involved into something that could accrue major dollars for me, which would help me leverage myself to diversify into some other areas.
May is Small Business Month, and the Lee Group is going to hold its 4th annual Small Business Workshop at Detroit's Tech Town on May 3rd. This year's focus is on attracting and retaining customers. The event is presented by Fifth Third Bank and features expert advice on business growth, marketing, and customer strategies. Here to tell us more is the workshop's founder, Mark Lee. He is president of the Lee Group, and Tanya Rose, a vice president at Fifth Third Bank. Thanks both of you for being here.
Thanks for having us.
So the focus is on customers, attracting and retaining customers. Tell me about that focus and how it's different from the other workshops that you've done.
So the previous, the previous workshops we focused on the infrastructure.
Right.
You know, building your strategy, getting your business to the next level, business sustainability. But guess what? The next logical extension of business sustainability, if you open the doors,
sell products.
You got to sell product. But we're going to sell the products too.
Right.
So we made a decision this year to focus on attracting and retaining customers. Because if you have no customers, you're not going to be in business long term.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that that businesses need to do to attract and retain customers, and specifically here in Detroit, where small businesses operate in different kind of environments than they do out in the suburbs?
You know what I've discovered in the city, a lot of us still don't understand who our customers are.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest challenge is you need to research the market and make sure you understand exactly the types of customers you want to focus and go after. And based on my experience is that we have a lot of people that are so excited about opening the doors, but they've not given thought to that. And I think that's the biggest challenge that you find in the city relative to the suburban areas.
Yeah, yeah. And Fifth Third is one of the banks that's most active, I feel, in sort of helping to rebuild this business climate and business infrastructure in the city of Detroit. Talk about your role in the workshops here.
Well, we're really honored to continue our partnership with the Lee Group. And the reason why we're excited to continue this partnership because of what it really brings to the community, the value that the workshop brings to the community. And as we see the value that it brings to the community, we also have to focus on what small business actually brings to the economy and to the community itself. And that's why at Fifth Third we find it so important to focus on our customers and keep them the center of everything that we do and inspire them to continue to look at new ways and avenues to work on their business projections and focusing on their own customers.
And customers are a big part of those projections.
Absolutely.
And I would imagine then that they're a big part of the work that you do with businesses in terms of loaning them money and getting them capital when they need it, things like that. You got to have a customer base to justify those things.
You absolutely do have to have a customer base to focus on that. And as we focus on that, we think of new ways to continue our partnership, not only with the Lee Group, but also with our customers. We've developed a relationship with Axion, and Axion is a partnership where they will be looking into ways to expand the capacity of small business owners and really what'll help them spur jobs in our own community.
Mark, you've been working with small businesses a long time in the city, and like I said, this is the 4th annual Small Business Workshop. Talk about some of the things you've learned from the first 3 that maybe shape what you're doing now.
Yeah, I think again that's a great question. What I've learned in the first 3 years is that we have a great thirst for knowledge. And I think Detroit is still hot. You know, I've had this conversation in the past, but what's interesting to me is that a lot of people are still lacking the basic knowledge. And so therefore, when we put these workshops on, it is so clear that they're excited. They want to engage with someone from a Fifth Third Bank and our other partners who are engaged because they feel there's still this bureaucracy and I don't know Tanya specifically, for example, but they can come to the workshop, and the beauty is that they're in small group environments. They can interact with the businesses from downtown Detroit and throughout their neighborhoods. And I think that's the biggest thing I've learned over the years is, number one, is certainly a thirst for it, and number two is a great opportunity to network.
Yeah, yeah. How are we doing with lending and the lending climate in Detroit? I'm always eager to hear from banks about how that's improving. Sometimes I hear from customers, businesses and individuals about things that are changing, but from the bank's perspective,
from the bank's
right
perspective, I think we're definitely moving in the right direction because not only are small business owners coming to banks and able to get funding, but they're being prepared when they come. They are getting the knowledge they need by going to workshops like this one.
Right.
So they know
you don't
how
just
to
show
come.
up and ask for
Correct.
money, right?
They know what they're talking about. They have their credit in order. They have gone through the steps in getting prepared and have their business plan. So when they come to us, we're really able to help them. And get them to that next step.
What are some of the deficits that still exist in this market that banks are waiting, I guess, to see sort of fall back in line on the positive side? So
sometimes the startup companies we find still have a need or there's a gap there, and that's why we've partnered with the organization of Axion so that they can reach out to these small business owners that aren't quite to the capacity of some of the larger banks, but Axion can partner with them and give them the financing they need to get to the next level so that they are ready for traditional banks.
One of the things I want to point out too, if I could, about attracting and retaining customers is this thing called customer service. And I like to talk about the
super important part of it.
Absolutely. I talk about the customer journey process. And what I'm saying specifically about that is there's the before you buy something, there's something when you purchase this, that's the actual purchase, but then there's the post-purchase cycle as well. So when we talk about the post-purchase, we're talking about specifically how are businesses handling the customer service component. That's a critical part when it comes to attracting and retaining customers as well.
And even before that point, when you're thinking about starting a business, identifying what that customer base might be, sometimes is what leads you to start the business, but I would imagine sometimes it's the reason you might not want to start a business.
That's exactly right. Absolutely spot on. If you don't understand you're going to go after, there's a chance that you may not be successful, number one. And number two, I like to tell businesses and business owners that 20% of your customers will generate 80% of your revenue or your profits. So therefore, we have to think about the other 80%. Is that a cash drain on your business, or is there a way they can still reach them profitably and establish a relationship with them as well?
What are some of the other things that Fifth Third is involved with here?
So some of the other things that we're involved with outside of just working with the small business owners is getting involved in the community from that level and making sure that as we keep the community the center and the focus of what we do, that we're able to offer them the things that are needed in each and every community, because communities are different.
They're different, Mark, you also teach young people about business. Talk about the things that you're hearing from people right now, especially here in Southeast Michigan, about the idea of starting businesses or the idea of entrepreneurship. We talk about it a lot in the city, and we talk about that being a key component of the city's revival. Is that filtering down to the people who are about to enter the work world?
Yes. In fact, I've been teaching young people, thank you for allowing me to say that, adjunct professor of a major local university here, Eastern Michigan University. And I would suggest that over the last 10 years, and I asked the question, what do you want to do in your career? A lot of them would say, we want to go into the corporate space. Now, when I ask that question to my students, predominantly juniors and seniors at the university, a good 30 to 40% of them want to start their own business.
Do they?
Number one. And number two, they want to start the business specifically in Detroit.
Is that right?
Absolutely. That shocked me. And I asked them, why do you want to do that? And their position is, we want to give back to the city. They want to certainly establish their own, facilitate their own business control, their personal control when it comes to financial wealth and things like that. So there's a strong desire of our young people wanting to start businesses specifically in the city of Detroit.
All right. Well, I would imagine some of those young people may come out to the workshops this year and get advice about how to start that business. Thanks very much for being here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Thanks for having us.
And I want to thank Fifth Third Bank again as well.
And it is absolutely our pleasure to partner with the Lee Group.
No, that's a very big deal. All right, that's our program for today. Thanks for watching. You can get more information about our guests at AmericanBlackJournal.org, and you can always connect with us on Facebook and on Twitter. We'll see you the next time.
American Black Journal looks ahead at the next 50 years, we want to hear from you, the viewers. Tell us what you think of this program and what you'd like to see on future episodes. Visit AmericanBlackJournal.org to take a quick survey and share your opinion. Thank you.
American Black Journal is funded by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, a partner with communities where children come first.
How does diversity bring energy to us all? At DTE Energy, we believe that it's the contributions of all that build great communities. As a company, we grow stronger by welcoming the unique perspectives of everyone. As community members, we support our state's broad culture and heritage. From working closely with women and minority-owned suppliers to embracing our local cultures, DTE Energy is powering diversity. The DTE Energy Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public Television. Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
As a leader in innovation, Ford is committed to making people's lives better through social mobility. Through our community programs, Ford is providing opportunities and access that help people succeed and realize their dreams. Sometimes it's as basic as providing a warm meal to a child so they won't be hungry at school and can learn. Sometimes it's about job training for adults to gain economic independence. Whatever your dreams, Ford is committed to helping you achieve them. Ford, driving a brighter future in our community.